Welcome back, wrestling fans. Today we have the head coach for Little Rock, Neil Erisman. Thanks for joining us, Neil.
Hey man, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Earl.
Sure. So, just what's going on in Little Rock these days? What are you up to right now?
Man, we are just training for U20s and U23s, recruiting hard, and uh, just just finished school. So getting the guys, some guys got summer school, some guys are just getting jobs and training, and just trying to move the program forward.
All right. So we've had about almost 2 months since the NCAA tournament. Just kind of your reflections after processing this for some time now.
I mean, it was a fun ride. Uh, it's you felt the buildup coming over the years, and you were just really had a strong belief that it was going to happen, and it was really cool to see it all come together, and just to watch the amount of praise for these guys for the hard work that they put in has been pretty incredible. Watching the community of Arkansas kind of come together and figure out how it's not easy keeping two freshman All-Americans to go in the portal when people are, paying outrageous numbers. So it was cool to see the community of Arkansas come together and make sure that they support and be on the front of making sure we keep the best guys in Little Rock and Arkansas.
So this topic usually kind of has a negative connotation per se. You have a bad result at NCAAs, you have a bad duel, something like that. It's like, okay, we got to move on. Next thing, can't dwell on this. We got something else coming up. So, kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, you mentioned there's, excuse me, a lot of praise from the community, the wrestling community, great job, two All-Americans, amazing awards. Have you had to say to the guys, okay, that's great, love you, great season, 2025 is right around the corner. So,
Heck yeah, we've had that conversation. We've had it more than once, and just, it's more about, for me, um, there's times to let them know that they're slipping, but it's also more important to remind them of what got us here. And so they can keep that on the forefront of their mind, and of understanding that, like, we can't forsake our first love, like, and that's hard work, toughness, and um uh just a lot of grit, and the work that they've been doing in the off season has got us to this point. Like the way they changed their bodies all summer, the way that they really focused on becoming professionals in every part of their life. That is what got them here, and that's what I keep trying to remind them. And I'm a little bit of a believer that it's okay to let these guys fail a little bit. Uh, I try to let them know what's coming ahead of the curve, and and trust me, I can't keep my mouth shut when things aren't going perfect or great. But I let them know, and I challenge them, and I challenge them to step up, because if you don't, here's what I see coming. And I think that's what's really been a great relationship with my guys, is that it's not a, if you do this, we're going to work this type of hard, and we're going to, like, no, if you don't do the things you're supposed to, like, you're leaving things out to chance, and you're losing your edge. And so that's really helped us build that relationship of trust, of honesty, and of response from the guys.
and so, this maybe isn't the best comparison, but it's something I know about. When I was coaching high school, I took over a team that was kind of starting over from scratch. And when you're doing that, you have a lot of opposing coaches and stuff, or good friends with you, and hey, let me know if you want to get to our tournament or duel, and do you need help with this and that, and then you start winning, you start, in your case, winning on the recruiting trail. They see you as a threat, and then maybe it's like it shifts a little bit. Like these conversations are maybe a little shorter and less friendly, and you're not the duel they want to have for senior day. Have you already seen that shift, or is that something coming up?
We saw that the day that we beat Arizona State, and now I'm not speaking negatively of my friends, but it just it changed, it shifted. You are now no longer the young kid on the block that everybody's rooting for. You're now in the mix with us, and so welcome to the fight. And I love it. I love when even my buddies or other coaches, like, they don't want to talk to me after competition or whatever. Like, um, it fires me up. That means I'm doing the right thing. That means my team's doing the right thing. My staff is doing good things. Like, that's what I actually really enjoy when people do that.
All right, so I don't know, maybe the second or third week of the season, maybe it was after the Missouri tournament that you guys went to. I had a coach from another school say, you might be underestimating these Little Rock guys. Like, up and down their lineup, every single one of these guys is a fighter and tough and wrestles hard. And I haven't had that too many times where a coach says that about another coach's team. And we're in a sport where there's a lot of tough guys. There's a lot of hard wrestling. Everybody's striving to wrestle tough. What is it about the system, the guys that you've recruited over the years, to the point where you can field a lineup of, maybe not 10 guys that are going to beat you every single duel, but 10 guys that are going to go out there and fight and, give you a tough time?
Man, I think that the number one thing we do as a staff is we just try to stay true to who we are as a staff. We don't try to be something we're not. We don't try to coach to something we're not. Like, I think every coach on my staff embodies that. And I think that bleeds over to the guys. I think it bleeds over. We compete daily in the things that we do. Like, I mean, even, and I'm not just talking about wrestling. Like, if we're going to play handball that day, or we're going to be, go out on the soccer field and play soccer, like, you better be ready for a dogfight, because there's no coach that's going to take it easy on you because you're an athlete or whatever. Like, I think that starts there. And I think the athletes have embraced it. And with it has come a form of, fun. Like, it's fun to compete and to trash talk and to, give guys a hard time for not meeting a standard in the middle of a competition. And that's really what it's about. Like, if you're not meeting the standard in the middle of practice, if you're not meeting the standard in your warm up, if you're not meeting the standard when we're playing a pickup game of basketball, of that competitiveness about you, like, hey, one person in this room that's not going to let you know about it. And for us, I think that's kind of created a culture of just competing in every position. And then, that makes people's lives hard, right? And then you combine that with the attitude of trying to score points. And I think that kind of creates that culture and that attitude and mentality behind those guys, that doesn't really matter the time of year or even the sport. Like, this is what we're going to do, and you better be ready for a fight.
Yeah, I like going into wrestling rooms, before practice, and seeing that and seeing the interactions and seeing, how these guys compete with each other outside of wrestling. So that's fun. One of the things pre NCAAs that was kind of a topic was, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, um, the transfer portal and poaching and stuff like that. And I think from the wrestling community, those concerns only got greater after you put two guys on the podium and they're both freshmen. So kind of taking a different angle, um, I thought that, I mean, heck, there's Power Five programs now, Power Four, I guess, Big 12, Big 10 now has schools that don't have wrestling. Um, they say that it's not worth it or they don't want to do it. Where Little Rock added a wrestling program not too long ago, huge investment into it, the community, donors. So I feel like this angle of it is, your program has taken care of your guys into, you from a coaching staff, maybe the personal interactions and then the other stuff outside of it to make these guys want to stay and, not look elsewhere.
Yeah. So the way I understood the question is, what are we doing to keep our guys, right?
Yeah,
That's basically the question.
and then you have the kind of the support maybe that people don't realize, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
well, I think the first question is, or the first answer to that question is we spent all year prepping our guys and recruiting them, re-recruiting them by building stronger relationships, right? When you know what it's like for a kid of where he wakes up every day and goes to bed, and he can you can see what he's staring at, and you can get to understand the background he came from, the culture he came from, and you can have hard discussions with him about, hey, here's the direction I think you need to go. Here's the things I think you need to eliminate in your life, and here's the things that make you successful. When you intentionally do that with your athletes, um, makes it hard for them to leave. Now I understand, like, some of these schools are offering, I mean, $250,000 to $500,000 and anything in between. It's going to make a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid think. I mean, and I can't blame them for that because that is life-changing money. But that right there is the conversation we have. Like, I can't blame you for thinking like this. I can't be upset at you for, essentially thinking about this offer, because the reality is that is a really good offer. But let's just remember the things that make you successful. Okay. You're in an environment here at Little Rock where you have people who have your back. We don't lie to you, and we always show up, right? Like, that's what our staff does. We show up and we row the boat. If you're there, if you're not on time, if you're half asleep, if you're best, we row that boat with you until, it's your turn to finish the trip. And I think that, combined with conversations about watching how other transfers are doing, I think the real reality is not a lot of these transfers are winning national titles. And we try to communicate to them, like, your goal is to win a national title, right? So right now, if you were to play the odds, there's about one or two guys that have transferred and become national champions. Okay. And now it doesn't mean they're not doing good. It doesn't mean they're not in the national finals, but they're not really exceeding any expectations as a whole. At least those that are transferring for money right now. And those types of conversations and putting that on their radar from day one allows them to have both sides of the picture, that the grass might not be greener on the other side. And I think that, to answer the second part of your question, is watching the outpour of not just praise but like excitement and people jumping on board to saying, look, Little Rock's not going to be a program that's going to offer out $500,000 to get an All-American, or someone to be a national champ. But here's what we can do for you, and we greatly appreciate you. And we're going to show you by not just doing this, but we showed you by showing up to your matches all year, to having you out for clinics, to having you come to the kids tournaments and being a celebrity. Like, you're a person who's wanted here and loved, and we're going to take care of you as our Arkansas Little Rock family. And I think the combination of that has really put these guys in a position where they're like, this is home. I don't want to have to walk into coach's office and say, I'm thinking about transferring for this money, right? And then the last piece to that is there's a lot of trust. We never approached our guys about leaving. We never said, what's the deal? Are you leaving? Are you leaving? We basically said, we're going to trust you enough to know that you're going to walk in our office and have a real conversation with us. So we're not going to come to you and be like, you can't leave, you can't leave, you can't leave. We're going to come to you and tell you, here's what we're going to do for you. Here's how we're going to help you. And we have trust that you're not just going to jump ship, and you're going to come have that conversation with us. And I think that built even deeper trust with them, because we believed that they weren't going to leave from day one.
All right. So as you're building a program, you have these benchmarks, you have these steps: first NCAA qualifier, first All American, national champion, world team member. You hit that with the All Americans this year. Since the NCAA tournament, how have you noticed everybody else on the team kind of responding to that and feeding off that? Because, you know, they're Stephen Little, Nazir Bailey, they're great wrestlers. I'm sure at the same time, within the dynamic of the team, there is a little bit of, the competitive edge you mentioned, and okay, he did it, I can do it. Have you seen that sort of positivity since then?
Well, I think just if you look at the number of guys that didn't qualify in the past that qualified this year, I think that's the first real sign that you said, hey, I don't want to be left behind. I don't want to be the one guy that didn't get to go, or whatever. And so I think that's that's a great sign of them, rising to the level of competitiveness and talent in our room. And I think it's shifted the direction. I think Steven's just tough, hard-nosed mentality as a true freshman really elevated our program. And then the unbelievable skill and work ethic that Nasir Bailey brings to our room, those two combined, we had a great group of older guys that, they're all coming back for their last year that had already set a tone and a standard, but these guys helped see something different and something new. And you combine that together and you kind of had a little bit of fire and gasoline for a good explosion right there. Right. And I think that that's going to continue. I think that watching our young guys that are coming in and then the transfers that we're getting, man, they're on par with wanting to be what those guys are and to be better than those guys. And so yeah, it's a rising tide brings up all ships, and that's what's happened.
And you kind of mentioned recruits right there. We've exchanged some emails recently about recruiting. And, as I'm looking at your incoming class, you have, Oklahoma, you have Missouri, you have Texas. These are places that you've generally went to over the past couple of years. And Arkansas is a state that's, on the rise as far as high school wrestling goes. And I'm sure, one of your goals is to help kind of elevate that so that you can fill a lineup with a lot of Arkansas kids. But as I'm looking at these recruiting lists and I'm seeing Pennsylvania, Colorado, Iowa, you guys are just really casting a wide net. And you're all Americans, Illinois, Kentucky, like you got guys from all over the place.
Yeah, I feel like, we work really hard to help Arkansas, um, from the youth level, from the high school level with our RTC stuff, and also just giving back to the youth. Like we try really hard to plug into the youth, and that's easy for me because I got 6 kids, so I got kids at wrestling tournaments every weekend. So it's easy for me to do that, but it's also important because we want these kids to have an identity, and I think that's the biggest thing that like we really want to try to give out is if you grow up in Iowa, you wrestle like a Hawkeye or a Cyclone or a Panther, right? You grow up in Oklahoma, you wrestle like a Cowboy. You grow up in some of these
You,
states,
you
you
don't you don't grow up wrestling like a Sooner.
no. Um, uh, but but yes, you do grow up, wanting to be like a Tion Ware, wrestle like the Sooners for sure. But we want to be that for our state. We want to be that, hey, if I get a wrist, I'm turning you. If you try to touch my legs, I'm going behind like Stephen Little, and I'm slapping cradles like this guy, and like it kind of starts there, and it creates excitement because we're going to Little Rock or we're going to tournaments, and kids are wearing Little Rock singlets, and kids are doing that, the sign language LR, and it's just it's a cool thing, and that's really the culture that we're trying to bring.
And also on the topic of recruiting, I know Javi Maldonado has been, kind of spearheading a lot of the recruiting efforts. What's he mean and what's he bring to the program?
I mean, Javi, he's a dog. Like he just gets after it. Like I would, he does not get enough credit. There's not enough credit for what he deserves. Um, he's, I mean, I could give him titles, I could give him all the money in the world, and he is the glue that holds this together. And he is something that is, he's just been really, really a special friendship for me also. Um, on top of that, like I've had a lot of great friends in my life, but very few like Hobby, and just what he's brought to this program from a balance standpoint. You always got to have that that coach that balances out the head coach, and he understands me, he gets me, he understands what the vision is, he understands the value of hard work and how it works, and he wants to win, and he's a wrestling junkie, he's a sports junkie, and all of that just like if you were able to know Javi like I would do, you would see how much his fingerprints have shifted, the direction of Little Rock wrestling.
Awesome. So kind of looking outside of Little Rock, we talked about this before we started recording. Your alma mater, Oklahoma State, kind of within the last month or so stole a lot of attention in the wrestling world with John Smith stepping down and David Taylor getting the job. Um, and I think you'd probably be uniquely qualified to kind of comment on the situation with those roots. Plus, uh, I imagine being a teammate of Coleman Scott at some point, and then him bringing you on the UNC coaching staff, working alongside of him. So just kind of your overall thoughts of the whole coaching situation there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't tell me beforehand that you were asking this question, but I think number one, I am heartbroken for Coleman and him and his family, but I know who he is, and I know that he's going to bounce back, and he's going to be a fighter, and you're not going to hold him down, and I think that's important for people to know. Like, this might not be even close to an ideal situation, but I know that he's going to make it. And I had a lot of friends, guys like Chris Perry and Gary Wayne that lost their jobs as well, and I feel for them, right? And so, there is a little bit of bitterness to the sweetness of some of the good things that came out of it. And I love those guys and I feel for them. But if they believe they got their best guy, then I'm very happy for them, and I'm super excited. I mean, some of the numbers that are being thrown around for what it took to get this deal done and to shift the landscape back towards Oklahoma State, for them. Obviously, if it's not Little Rock, like, I want Little Rock to win, but if it's not Little Rock, then I would prefer it to be my alma mater, and for them to see the I mean, this is a seismic shift in college wrestling. This is a big deal. They brought in the biggest name in wrestling and outside KO right now, and they financially backed it up and said, "Hey, look, we're here to win, and we're here to do whatever it takes." And now that's very exciting, and I can see the vision of what they believe is going to happen there. And as an alumni, that's exciting to see the investment that's being made.
And who was David Taylor's first NCAA match against?
I think you're talking to him. So
That's right. All right. Wrap it up. Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you want people to know about Little Rock wrestling or anything in general?
man, I think people know a lot about Little Rock now. It's just a matter of you can know. There's a difference between knowing and believing. And if you want to believe, come check it out.
That's a great way to end it. Thanks so much for your time, Erisman.